Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Science of Spiritual Growth. I'm joined with my co-host, Yuri Verbishchuk. And as usual, we're talking about all matters spiritual and even immaterial matters, whatever that is. Everything is welcome. Nothing is forbidden. All of your questions are welcome. If you have comments or preferences, definitely send us a message, comments below on these podcast recordings, or if you're joining us live, of course, then you get to ask your questions live. And this is a very exciting time for the planet, for the country, for your community, for your family, for yourself, because there's so much information that you really have the ability to vet, to compare and contrast, to really choose what's best for you. Now, there's a problem there because you can get really caught up in the system, become a cog in the system, get clogged in it. There's just too many options. Analysis paralysis can take place. And so cutting through to the truth and finding true spiritual growth is essential for a sense of bliss and happiness and contentment. I'm joined, as always, with Yuri Verbishchuk, an advanced Buddhist meditator who has been going through some exciting transformations in the last 10 to 14 days. I've witnessed a lot of it, so it's very exciting. Very happy to be here with you. And he has some great content. We were talking right before this podcast regarding the third eye. And essentially, take it away, Yuri. I don't want to put words in your mouth. You had some great stuff that you wanted to talk about.
I came in contact with this spirit a few days ago, like one day ago, I don't know, 30 hours ago. And from that time up until now, I have been able to gain so many insights into not only my life, but the lives of others through this gland that's inside of my brain, in the center of my brain, that it's the most valuable tool that you can use for insight. And yeah, what do you think?
What do I think about the gland?
Just what do you think about in general, the thing that I said?
Well, sometimes I get a little thrown off when I hear very certain words like always, the very best, never. And so I don't know if it's the best,
Mm-hmm.
but it's good. And sometimes I think it's easy to get caught up in the physical of it. And definitely there's like a pineal gland, there's a pituitary gland, a hypothalamus gland, and some postulate that these relate with different chakras or energy centers, which themselves relate to different elements of consciousness. And so by gazing there in those places, by shining the light of your awareness in those locations, certain things, certain insights, revelations, or just think of them as subconscious connections. You just start to see patterns, and which is like kind of wisdom, right? So I think it's incredibly useful, and it's really important that to demystify, because this is science. And
Yes.
Science also means held up under a magnifying glass, and it means falsifiable, testable, reproducible. And these are elements of science as we know science. Like science is a Western word, right? That word is like Latin. And so from the science of the West, then these elements of reproducible, falsifiable, and verifiable, and some other things. I forget, the scientific method, basically. So I'm very interested in demystifying and applying it.
Yeah, definitely what you said. I need to be more aware of my language and avoid using always and the best and these general all-purpose words. So it's having insights with this gland is fairly good. It's pretty good.
You can always like get around it by saying like it's the best in my experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That's very good. Yeah, it's the best in my experience because of something practical. Like so many practical things have happened in the last 48 hours. One of the most peculiar experiences that I've had was I was laying in bed and I noticed that in my brain, this gland is becoming like condensed, or energy is forming around this gland. Purple energy is forming around this gland, and I can physically feel it, and it's almost like it's becoming bigger or more concentrated. And I was able to perceive a person that I'm talking with, and I was able to perceive their entire mental experience and how they're experiencing their own internal world. And from this, I could gain access to their own insecurities, which is incredibly valuable because this person and I have had this kind of like conflict when we're speaking. And so this gave me insight into how I can best communicate with this person.
Mm-hmm.
Not only that, it gave me insight into my own insecurities, and me calling myself teacher of humans is only it's only an insecurity to protect myself from being hurt from other people. So wow. I deleted that name and
wow.
deleted it off my. So that's just.
You just changed the name, or did you delete the Instagram?
Well, I just changed my name to Yuri Verbishuk.
Wow. Wow, that's really transformative. I didn't mean to like yell into the microphone there, because that's so interesting. Because right before this, I was pitching like and hit up. But that was like, well, actually, I'm not. You won't find me where you think I am. I'm not there. You know. Yeah. So yeah. So specifically, just to give people context as they're joining, we're talking about the third eye, which is just an esoteric name for basically the forehead region and some other things there: energy centers, endocrine glands, nerve plexus, and wow. So you gained a massive empathy for someone that you had been having conflict with, and then you realized that you had a certain name that was somehow an expression of your insecurity.
Exactly. Yes.
Wow. Do you think that's common for people, or what do you think? What? I tell me more. I'm interested.
Yeah.
Because we all have names, right?
Okay. Yes. So
I got a handle.
So just for the people that don't know, I am working with for 48 hours I've been in contact with the spirit, and he's been able to teach me so much about this experience of using this gland, this third eye, this pineal gland. Mm. And I'm able to use it to perceive other people, and I'm training to use it to perceive the people that are around me in order to best communicate with them from their own mental experience. So I can kind of like step into a person's mind and see how they're viewing themselves. So I mean, everyone has insecurities, and I think that it's valuable for someone to know what their insecurities are, because I mean, you can fix them.
Yeah. Yeah. Even like earlier, I had a conflict with my girlfriend, and of course, in the moment when there was like emotions and ego, and it's like, no, I'm right. And then later, when I identify, it was an insecurity of my own, then there's, a foundation for growth and really a substance to, I don't want to call it like an apology, but definitely addressing that I made errors or I made mistakes or I did things that I would do differently in the future. And that quote apology, I'm hesitating calling it apology because, I don't know, I guess that sounds weak or something. And I didn't actually say I'm sorry, but it, saying I was wrong without actually identifying the root insecurity, which maybe isn't the root because there's a root to that root, but that there was something in me that was the problem. It wasn't you, it was me. And so, yeah, it's vital to be able to identify when when the problem is in you and projecting it onto the other person. And that's, probably, is that what you're considering an insecurity, or what do you mean?
Yeah, well, when a person has empathy, they can sense your insecurities based on the words that you choose to use. So it's very easy, because all the words that you choose to use, it's like you're basically writing out a whole sentence in front of the person. They can see, okay, this person's insecure about that, because the sentence clearly shows that this assumption is made, or that belief, has to be with this assumption. So I'd recommend that anyone that wants to learn about their own insecurities or the insecurities of others, you study communication.
Yeah, I agree. And so what does that mean? Because, there's probably 10 million people in the U.S. every year probably that, I don't know what the number is. I could look it up. If this was the Joe Rogan podcast, I'd have an apprentice right now looking up the statistic of how many people graduate college every year in the United States with a communications degree. Probably a lot. It's a lot. And they're probably not very good at it. But they probably have some scientific definition of communication is this, that, and the other. So when you say, if you want to get a handle on your insecurities, to grow past them, to change as you see fit, and you say it's essential that you study communication. What is it that you mean when you say that?
I say that you have to have a very good understanding of the words that a person chooses to use, what those words mean, what those words represent to the other person, and how you can use those person's words in a way that
Yeah, so interesting, because that's what I just did with you. I was like, what do you mean by communication?
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So we can actually get on the same page, because
Yes.
no joining of our minds if we're using the same word but we're meaning different things. So, and it can quickly become kind of an anal, uptight kind of, let me specify and get exact every word that you mean. So that, so there's an art to it, the communication in art also.
Yes.
What do you guys think that are tuning in? What do you guys think communication means? What does it mean to you, so that we can get some words about it and really amplify our vocabulary around this concept? Because we're talking about the third eye, we're talking about communication, which is, hold on one second while I close this. You guys don't need to hear sirens.
Does anyone have experience using the third eye?
We do have a question. Sorry, what'd you say, Yuri?
I asked if anyone has experience using their third eye for this kind of insight.
Yeah. Does anybody have any experience using the third eye at all? That's a really esoteric concept, like using the third eye. And the thing is everybody is using the third eye. They just aren't identifying it as such. It's like, everybody's using their heart chakra. It's just, everybody's using all of it. It's just maybe they're misusing it, or they're underusing it, or they're overusing it, or they're, whatever. So
what is,
go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. In yoga, what do the chakra systems have to do with yoga? Does it come into play?
Body. So in yoga philosophy, there's many different sheets of existence that just kind of superimpose in the same point space. So like you right there, you have the material body, the energy body, your mental body, and then your belief body, which is part of your mental body, but it's like deeper, and your bliss body. And then beyond all of that is the self. And so the self observes all of those bodies. And the energy body is the liaison between physical and mental. So it's kind of like an aperture through which your mind communes with your body. So, there's a lot to be said on that. I'm not like a super scholar on it. I'm actually teaching chakras right now on the silent flute. But what I teach is the mental aspect of these energy points. And so that when you go into a meditation and focus on these points, then you can start to see the sentences, start to see the pictures, start to see and notice the sensations that come up when you look at certain points in your body, and really decode them and go back into your personal life history, or maybe even beyond that, prior life, but definitely in this life history, and see how you have been coded by your environment to behave a certain way. And you're just a machine. You're a robot that's been coded to behave a certain way. And most of your behavior isn't you. It's just the robot. And so chakra meditation is a really potent means to objectively see your conditioning, in my opinion. It's one tool. Like, I have many tools, but chakra is something I can see really taking with me for a long, long time. And there's many different chakra systems. I personally work with 10 chakra system, but I'm actually teaching a 7 chakra system because that's most familiar to people, and they can find the resources on it. It's going to be kind of tough to find resources on 10 chakra system. So, and anybody, if you got your, type them both on Instagram, Facebook Live, Zoom Live. We got a question from Magical Mercer here on Zoom. We always give preference to the Zoom because that's where the application we're using. So if you want to be on the Zoom, click the link in the bio. Magical Mercer asks, what is the best way to cleanse your gland? Being that you're referring to the third eye gland as we're talking about. And so take it away, Yuri. What's your take? What has
on August 2nd, I took a flight from Toronto, Canada to Thailand. And when I landed in Thailand, I went to a Buddhist monastery and I stayed in Southeast Asia for 4 months. And in those 4 months, I had such a purification process of my entire system that all of the things that have been, like, the way that I mentally see it is, if my brain is a neural network, that I had so many neural networks that were just like so many cobwebs and so many branches that didn't need to be there, or so many dark neural pathways that were just stuck there for such a long time from past lives even, or from, I don't know. And so I cleansed all of that. And now that when I came back to Toronto, when I came back to Canada, all those things were gone. And naturally I have the free use of my system. So my pineal gland is naturally clean. So that's the way I purified my gland, my third eye, is through meditation.
Yeah. There's lots of science. You can Google lots of things about it. And I'm 32 years old. I would say when I'm 64 years old, I'm going to have a lot more knowledge on this subject as I go forward in time. And at this point, I would say that oxygen has a huge role to play in the efficacy of your nervous system. And whatever you're perceiving most of it through your nervous system. That's how you pick up your senses. So clarifying your nervous system, clarifying your communication with your nervous system, because it's easy to distort the message. Like I was hanging out with my girlfriend yesterday, and there was another woman there, and she was talking about it's easy for her to read people. And, she's very proud of it. She's what you call a Hare Krishna. A Hare Krishna is like a kind of Hindu practitioner. They're bhakti yogis, so they just do a lot of devotion and chanting and charity and feeding people and things like that. But let's just say, in all fairness, I've never met a sane Hare Krishna. I've met some very good people. They don't hurt people. They have some great ideas, and some of them have some really deep knowledge of mind, because their master, the guy's name, I forget. It's hard to pronounce. He knew a lot about a lot. But I've just not met a sane Hare Krishna. They all seem really kind of bonkers. But maybe I seem bonkers to people too. Anyway, so she says something like, it's really easy for her to read people. And I was like, that's really interesting. Because, yeah, everybody's reading everybody. But sometimes it gets lost in translation. Like, just because you're reading somebody doesn't mean you're reading them right. Like, just because, have you ever, tried to read into a text message and you're like, what is this person implying? And, you read it, but two people would read it differently. Or have you ever seen someone's facial expression, you're like, what do you think that they're feeling right now? And you try to read them. And if you ask 10 people, you'd get maybe some similar answers, but ultimately there's going to be deviations. You're not just because you can read doesn't mean you're reading it accurately. So the ability to accurately read people, it's going to come through trial and error. Having a teacher is really, really helpful. Someone that's at least just a little bit further along than you, so they can point out where you're kind of deviating from the reality. Because there's a common saying that I teach in chakra meditation, that you project what you reject about yourself. What you reject about yourself, you project onto the other person. So a lot of times, if you have an insecurity, you'll read the person as, that they're insecure. And it's like, no, you're insecure. That's what you're filtering it. They're not insecure. And so to get out of your head is going to be really important. Then, so we're talking about cleansing the gland, oxygen, changing your diet, of course, because, the material body is nothing but what you've breathed and eaten your whole life. That's it. Your whole body is just what you breathe and eat. That's it. That's what you eat and drink, but that's eating. So the quality of how you breathe and the quality of what you eat is your material body. That's what you're made of. And it takes time for cells to regenerate. And the later in life you go, the less regeneration that's happening, because that's called senescence as you age. So this is the point of what I want to say, is that the material is just the material. If it totally depended on your pineal gland or pituitary gland being clean for you to reach spiritual enlightenment, then all people would need to do is breathe well and eat well, and they would reach enlightenment. That's not it. There's more to it than that. And it's possible to have maybe a polluted body, but reach spiritual liberation. Like the story Arash was telling out of the Autobiography of Yogi, where this really fat yogi guy, he drank a vat of paint. As a guy, he used to drink curdled milk once a month. And the guy wanted to test his power and came and gave him paint. It kind of smelled like milk. he drank the whole thing, and then the guy that gave him to him started dying. Actually, in the story, the guy dies. And, it's a story, so take it for what it will, for what it is. But the guy was not clean in his body, but he was spiritually liberated. He lived for like 300 years. He lived for like 100 years on the bottom of the Ganges River, like under the water. So I wouldn't get too tied up in the cleaning the gland for spiritual liberation. Clean the gland because you want clean glands. Clean the glands because it feels good to have a clean body. Clean the glands because it's less agitations inside, so it's less emotional volatility. You can more easily deal with reality. But so it really depends on what outcome you're going for. Let's say there. We got questions rolling in. Do you got any comments on what I said, Yuri?
Yeah, just clean the mind is what I would say.
Yeah, there it is. Everything I said summarized there. So, cool. All right. So we got a question from, Magical Mercer comments, communications to me is very different. I do spiritual evocation and they can communicate through the mind's eye. I need to learn the 10 chakra. Yeah, maybe. It just keeps it rich. Like, I have a few different main meditations that I go to. I've got like many, but there are like 3 or 4 that I kind of cycle through. And maybe that's not the best way to do it. I'm sure Yuri has a take on that. He's probably more advanced in meditation than I am. But sometimes it's easier to go into one meditation than the other. And so it's nice to have a kind of a backup tool, like some other tool. I want to reach it. I don't want to be forcing and resisting and creating. I need to achieve something in my meditation. So it's nice to have this one. It's nice to have that one. It's nice to have this one, and sit for 10 minutes and be able to do it. So 10 chakra system is nice. It relieves the pressure of having to do the 7 chakra system, and vice versa. There's 5 chakra systems. There's 4 chakra systems. Arash has taught a 3 chakra system, which is just a general, like head, heart, sex. Like, it's just basic, So, there's that. Jose Ruiz, he says, I often feel pressure in my third eye through the day, but I have trouble discerning between my own thoughts and possible insights. Feeling the pressure as I type this, as a matter of fact, he's feeling the pressure as he types this, but not. What do you think?
When I hear that, I feel purple energy, like just in my whole perception. And when he asks, I feel different, like I don't know how to differentiate between my own thoughts and insights. Your thoughts and your insights for you specifically are the same thing. So they're not insights from something else. They're the same thing. So it's your thoughts and your insights. And you feel pressure because your attention is going on things that are above the natural world or above the physical world. And so naturally pressure builds up there because energy is flowing to the center that you're using to kind of access that plane of existence. So the way that you relieve the pressure is you relax, just relax your body and do something physical, do something practical. If you want to relieve the pressure.
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with, as Yuri said, tension, and just like physical tension, muscle tension, blood tension, a little bit more breathing before you go so deep into your meditation. Certain breathing practices, like what I teach, help to open and close your blood vessel system so that you get more flow. And a lot of times the pressure is literally the blood vessels are not dilating. They're not expanding, so the blood pressure is increasing. And, because there's more blood flow going where you're paying attention to, especially as you underbreathe. When you sit and meditate, you're underbreathing. If you've ever noticed, when you meditate, you shallow breathe. Just it gets less and less and less and less and less. When you underbreathe, more blood goes to your brain. That's just what happens to the physiology. And so if more blood goes to your brain, but the arteries are not dilating, then that's more blood pressure. So learn some breathing practices. And that's what I would have. And then this needs to be examined. I don't know that this is the time to do this. But this word insight is a magical word. Don't be this word around too recklessly. Like thoughts. Okay, I get that. Thought. Everything's a thought. I just thought this word before I spoke it. And I'll get to Instagram. I'll get to your comments in a second. But insight, what do you mean? What do you mean by insight? Before I give my take and like teaching on it and like break it down into etymology and all that stuff, what do you mean by insight? How is insight different from thought? And this is going back to your first point about communication to understand what people's words are. To you, Jose Ruiz, what is insight? How is that different from thought? And yeah. Okay, Magical Mercer says, you're right. I need to learn how to revive messages the right way instead of my own. I think he means receive. Learn how to receive messages the right way instead of my own perspective. Well, yeah, it's a hard thing to do. Like, you're always going to have some ego into it until you don't. And when you don't, that's not even a question. Like, there's no doubt, there's no hesitation, but that's not the sure sign of it, because there are people that don't have doubt or hesitation and they're just psychopaths. So just because you have no doubt or hesitation doesn't mean you're egoless. But so I would just don't go so hard on yourself, man. Just do your practice daily, consistency. You'll get more and more references as you go through the fluctuations of your life. And in the fluctuations, you'll see the common theme or the commonality between day-to-day practices. And that will give you perspective on this. Jose Ruiz, CO2 dilates blood vessels, correct? Technically, yeah, there's a chain, but yes, basically. Yeah. As you accumulate CO2, it dilates certain blood vessels, not all. It does vasodilation around the head and heart, but it contracts the blood vessels elsewhere. And cool. Any take from you, Yuri, before I read off some Instagram comments?
No.
You liked that idea about meditation. It's under breathing and it sends more blood to the brain.
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I definitely feel it's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I gotta breathe deep.
Have you ever tried to meditate like hanging upside down?
No.
It'd probably be hard. All right, let's see here. We got one from JJR, Joshua Jesus Rosario. Do you say it Jesus or Jesus? Feeling a cleansing while breathing between the eyes. How do you breathe between the eyes? While I focus, self-awareness helps to cleanse my core gland and aura as well. Through more contemplation than meditation, spitballing my idea. Cool. So, yeah, focusing between the forehead while you breathe. Yeah. It's amazing. I love this. It's a really catchy thing that people say in like yoga classes, like breathe into your arm, breathe into your leg. Like, I'm not teasing you, JJR, because I say it too sometimes, but it's like, come on, like you breathe into your lungs and that's it. And then you're sending attention somewhere and just put your attention somewhere while you breathe. Just put your attention somewhere in your body while you breathe. So JJR, he also says, superconscious bodies, communicating for entertainment, breathing through gibberish. LOL. Did you understand that? What does that mean?
Whoa, that was some really, I don't know.
Oh.
That was something.
It is some big words, that's for sure. JJR, I feel innocence is integrated with communication. Innocence is integrated with communication. Relaxing matures the nature as long as there is improvement. Kaizen. JJR, what's your native language? I'm curious. Are you American? Relaxing matures the nature as long as there improvement. Yeah, cool. What's up, Lily? And yes, haha. Cool. All right, take it away, Yuri. What's next? Where are we going with this? You said you had questions for me.
Yeah. I've met you in person and I see how developed, first of all, how straight and perfectly adjusted your body is. But I feel like you have an incredibly comfortable body. Like I would want to be in your body and, just relax, stretch around, sit down, lie down, do whatever.
Thank you. I work hard for it.
Yeah. So I want to know if there's any kind of like simple things that the average person can do without going into, becoming a master yoga instructor, that they can use to straighten out their posture, have a better feeling body number one. And number two, I understand that you follow a vegan diet.
Yes.
So what do you eat for you to have the muscles that you have and have the size that you do?
Yeah, great questions. First of all, there's an immense bliss and pleasure that comes when you erect your spine and straighten it out, and when you loosen up your hips and loosen up all the joints in your body. Like, it's addictive. The tension, you don't realize how tense you are until you loosen up.
Mm.
So once you start to go into yoga practice, you'll quickly find out if it's for you or not. Some people get uncomfortable relaxing because when you relax, you're more able to see the contents of your mind, and that can be scary for some people. So but if you like it, then you're just naturally going to want to go deeper into it. The easiest thing is just lay down. Lay down on a hard floor. Feel what that's like, because the floor is flat, so it gives you an idea of what's straight. And once you lay down, then try to stand and close your eyes and just stand. And just develop a relationship with gravity. Just relate.
Mm.
Just feel gravity pulling you down. Gravity is no lie. It's the truth. It's straight to the center of the earth. It's not obscured at all, unless we go near a black hole or something and it like warps us. Like, it's just straight down. And your head has progressively moved forward, and that does things to your tailbone. And, just the biomechanics of it. It's just bone stacking. Like, you ever make those toothpick bridges in high school physics? Like, that's your body. It's just a toothpick bridge, So it's just designing it right. And so those are like the easiest things I would say. Is just stand tall, close your eyes, because your eyes will distract you. And eventually, I don't need to close my eyes, but I defocus my eyes and I focus on a point in the ether, in space. And that's called drishti. It's your gazing point. But if you're not into yoga, like, just sit tall or stand tall, or lay flat, or do both. And any more than that, join my program, because I can really change your posture. As far as the vegan stuff, I turned vegan for ethical reasons. Like, I used to eat lots of meat, and I was a hunter when I was growing up, and I was a wrestler at the University of Oklahoma, and a really good wrestler at that. And so I ate lots of the football player diets. All the athletes ate the same cafeteria. And so I just always ate lots of meat. When I got into yoga, I was still eating meat, but I was broke as a joke. I was like selling drugs to make ends meet, and just had really low self-esteem, and was just living on ramen noodles and grilled chicken on my George Foreman and beer. And so I got into yoga, and it was a chick that got me into yoga. I fell in love or lust or whatever with my yoga teacher. Maybe she sees this one day. And she's not my teacher anymore, but she was into like fasting and juice fasting and things like that. So I got into it, and it just felt good. When I came out of the fast, I remember two occasions. One, I ate it was in Oklahoma. So we have a fast food restaurant called Braum's, Braum, and really good stuff. And so I remember eating like the Braum's burger one day, and it just immediately like heavy. And then another day after I came off of like a 2-day juice fast or something, and I ate some just organic celery, and it was just like electricity through my body. I was like, this feels so much better. I felt light, and I was it was easier to stretch, and I could felt like I was connecting with my body again, because I had sworn off exercise for 2 years after I stopped wrestling. So I was just tired of cutting weight. I cut lots of weight in college. And so I was deciding this or that, and I just started, as I practiced more yoga, I started just having just incredible empathy for cows and chickens and just all kinds of animals. I was like, my grandpa used to raise cows in Oklahoma, and he was all ethical about it or whatever, but yeah, he would butcher a cow every once in a while. He mostly sold them for like purebred or whatever, but those people eventually slaughtered them. And so he was as ethical as like could be. Like, he was a pioneer, man. Like, he went out to Wyoming when he was a boy in the early 1900s or mid-early 1900s, was breaking horses where there was like no cars or anything. Like, he was rough and a cowboy. So he's not going to change, right? He's not going to become a vegan. So I was just faced with like all of this empathy. Like, I was like, I'm contributing to this. Like, I have a dog. Like, I don't like hurting animals. Like, I don't like when an animal cries around me. And like, I know that these animals cry. And I had seen some like videos of like, a mama cow crying when the baby calf was killed. And it's like, for like 3 days, this mama cow was crying. And it's like, how the fuck does this dumb animal able to remember that yesterday her calf died? And then 2 days later, how does it remember that 2 days ago the calf died? 3 days later, how does it remember that 3 days ago the calf died? Like, there's some consciousness there. And, you know, there's many examples of this sort of thing. I don't need to go into it. So I stopped eating meat and dairy because I felt bad for animals, basically. And then came the research. Then came the documentaries and the nutrition and everything. And apparently the science says there's enough protein in everything you eat that it's a myth. You don't need animal protein. The big thing is to avoid soy, because soy is poison. Basically, I mean, there's maybe some exceptions if you get like organic soy and you don't condense it and like this and that, process it. I go more into that. This month is actually Intelligent Nutrition Month and Silent Flute. So I'm giving lots of like datums for that. But basically, as long as you just eat enough calories, you'll get enough protein. The only way to be protein deficient as a vegan is to be calorie deficient, or to eat like only rice or something. But even that, like everything has 8 to 9% protein. Even like tomatoes, dry weight, have 8 to 9%. Lettuce has 8 to 9% protein, dry weight. It's just so voluminous because it's a lot of water and a lot of indigestible fibers. So, which will just clean out your system. You'll just poop a lot. So the key is resistance training or weight bearing. As long as you bear weight on your wrists, on your shoulders, on your arms, I'm doing yoga. So you see, I do lots of funky poses. So my muscles are every day engaged. Like I would say, I won't say all of my muscles, but I get a full body workout in a way that I never got as a wrestler. Guys, I mean, wrestling is one of the most dynamic things there is. Like maybe gymnastics is comparable. So I would say yoga is more encompassing. I get more ranges of motion, more symmetry. I explore more of the ways that joints can move. For example, in wrestling, it's really, really rare to bend your back backwards. That's just not a common thing. But in yoga, you bend your back backwards, which helps to counter the forward bend of your spine because you're sitting all the time and you're protecting your ego and everything all the time. And that's just chronically forward bending, which is going back to an animal state. Animals are on all fours. Humans are becoming erect. We're progressively evolving towards a straight spine. We're not quite there yet. We got another 1,000,000 years or so, but that's where we're going. So you can, in essence, I didn't get this early in yoga. Like I would hear about Yogananda talking about you accelerate your evolution with yoga. And I was like, what the fuck does that mean? Like, it sounds like a spiritual self-righteousness kind of thing. Like you think you're more evolved. And yeah, there might be truth to that. But quite literally, the more erect and effortlessly erect, it's not straighten and stiffen because that's not really erect. That's fragile. You're becoming a really brittle piece of metal and thinking that that's strong. It's about how relaxed can you be and simultaneously oppose gravity effortlessly. That was like a poetic I just said. So when you can effortlessly oppose gravity, you become more erect and there's more freedom. You just realize more freedom. And you're literally pushing your genetics closer and closer towards what your spine would look like 1,000,000 years from now. So there's an evolution. And what happens to your nervous system and your perception, because what is perception without your sensory neurons? You're literally altering how you perceive reality when you straighten your spine. But again, you got someone like Eckhart Tolle who's seemingly a very, very, very enlightened. I don't know how far in the enlightenment ladder he is, but he's very up there and his posture is shit. So, take it for what it is. The Dalai Lama have the greatest posture. So, it's one method to the mountaintop.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
Fascinating. So what do you eat? Do you eat a lot of dense food? Like what kind of dense food do you eat to build the muscles that you have?
I just don't think of it like that. Like the densest foods that I'll eat are like avocado, oils. I'll put oils on things. I think every now and then my girl will put like protein powder in like a smoothie. I guess that's kind of dense. I went through my own trials and tribulations with the diet. Like I became iron deficient a couple times, which is called anemia. So I was bleeding out my ass basically as I would shit. Not to be too gross, but that's what happened. You lose a lot of energy, and I lost a lot of weight. And I didn't realize what was happening. It was because I was not eating any leafy greens. Greens, that's essential. If you're vegan, you got to eat leafy greens. They're bland. You just got to eat them every day. have a handful of leafy greens, whatever it is. And so yeah, I don't really think about dense or not. I don't think there's really that many vegan dense foods other than just like oils and fats and things. So yeah, like I said, I don't think about protein. I just eat enough. When I'm hungry, I eat. I generally like to eat after I exercise. So not because I can totally exercise on a full stomach. It's just I like feeling that like my nourishment is going right to the muscles that I just fatigued. And that's what happens. So I really like this guy. I'd like to study with this guy. His name is Dr. Amen Ra. And anybody heard of Amen Ra? Comment if you've heard of Amen Ra, and then we're going to get to your comments. This guy, he lives in Maryland. It's just this like super cut black guy, like just zero fat on him. And he's fasting, cyclic fasting for 15 years. He eats like 1,200 or 1,500 calories a day. And he's the world deadlift record holder for his weight class.
Oh, yeah. I think I've seen him before. Yeah.
And he talks painfully slow, but you might like some of his bibliography. His bibliography goes like this. It's like the greatest exposition on the Yoga Sutras ever conceived. That's like his book title. Or it'll say the most definitive guide to nutrition ever written. Like these are like his book titles, you know, and have like a bibliography of like 7 or 8, like the greatest exposition on consciousness that you'll ever read or something like that. Because as a PhD in like what happens to the mind when you die kind of thing.
Is that even possible to gain that size with that few calories? Those like with only 1,000 calories?
He lays out the science of it, man. Just lays out the science of it. Like most of the calories you're eating, you're just passing. You're just not processing it. Like it's a myth how many calories you need. They're just going through you. They're what you call empty calories. You don't have biochemistry to utilize everything you're eating.
Huh. Why is that? And what can you do to stop it?
Well, the why has a lot to do with just your diet. It's just your diet. You know, you've been eating a lot of processed food. And if you haven't been eating processed foods, you're still eating fruits and vegetables that were sprayed with processed chemicals. And, you know, it's very rare to find someone that's eaten natural whole foods their whole life. And then it's just understanding nutrition and the balance of all the nutrients and vitamins and things that you need, that you end up accumulating excess of certain things and you're deficient in other things, which fucks with your metabolism, your metabolic pathways. The pathway is like, you know, nutrient comes in and then it gets absorbed and then it gets broken down and it goes through a series of chemical reactions before it's utilized as ATP in the cells. And you know, ATP is an acronym for like the energy source of, you know, your cells, which basically I used to not know what that means. It's just a little molecule basically that your cell generates, and it's almost like petroleum. It's like petroleum for your cells. It's how your cells don't use the food you eat. The food you eat gets broken down and goes through a whole bunch of chemical processes inside your body, and it becomes ATP. That's what your cells use. And there's probably some other things that use it, but ATP is like the main thing. And so if you have too much salt in your body, if you have too much protein in your body, if you have too many agitations in your body, like sicknesses or, you know, cancerous cells, we all have cancerous cells, but some have run away. You know, anything that is taxing on your immune system or your body systems takes away from your body's ability to properly assimilate food, because you're a finite system. So if your internal resources are allocated towards fixing this or fixing that, it's not allocated toward. So I think the best thing to do, in my opinion, is physical yoga. Physical yoga will reveal to you where your diet is leading you astray, because you'll naturally develop preferences after you do your physical yoga. Like I said, where I ate the Brahms burger and I felt the heaviness of it. And the next day I ate the celery and I felt the cleanliness and the lightness of it. And as you do physical yoga, you'll naturally just start to weed out foods that aren't serving you, because you'll be valuing your yoga practice. So valuing something other than food. The food is here. Like I like enjoying food, but it goes back to that old saying of I eat to live, I don't live to eat, kind of thing. And if you adopt that, then you know you can guide yourself. Otherwise, join the silent flute, everybody, because it's Intelligent Nutrition Month. Let's see here. Do you want to read any of the Zoom comments?
Sure.
And then we'll be wrapping it up in the next 5-10 minutes, guys.
Insight to me was when I have a thought, that I feel rings true to my being. Chris, I'm in Orlando. Do you have any workshops coming in this area? In
Uh,
Orlando, do you have any workshops?
no, not in Orlando. I've got one in Clearwater coming up, but that's like an hour and a half from Orlando. So sorry, but hey, you're close by, so we should get together, do like a one-on-one or something for a whole day. We can do a whole day. That's highly transformative.
Magical Mercer says, meat does mess with my energy. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I definitely feel that's true for myself as well. Jose Ruz says, using high-quality digestive enzymes can greatly increase the absorption of your macronutrients, allowing the body to assimilate more from less calories.
There it is. I think that's a lot of what Amen Ra does, too. He does a lot of I don't understand everything he does. That's why I want to study with him. Because I didn't understand. He uses a lot of scientific jargon to describe what he's doing, and I just don't get some of those concepts yet. But I think he uses things called phytonutrients and just a lot of little powder supplements, but like I think he makes them himself kind of thing, so it's not like store-bought stuff. And yeah, it's a fascinating thing what he's done. I played with it for like 2 months. I was living with Brian Casella for 2 months, and we did cyclic fasting. But we couldn't do it as extreme as Amen Ra was doing. We were trying to force it a little bit. But it was fascinating. I became really lean, really strong. My handstands felt really strong. The hardest part was really just the discipline and the 18 hours a day or the 20 hours a day that I wasn't eating. It's almost easier to just do like a 1 or 2 day fast and then just go back to regular eating versus every single day, because your body just goes through this rhythm where like at 3 p.m. every day you get hungry. At 10 a.m. every day you get hungry. If you push through that, it doesn't, like, it'll pass, you'll lose the hunger, but then 3 p.m. comes and you get hungry again. And day in and day out, it's like, I'm resisting this, like, urge, So now I'm just happy about it. I'm just happy.
Eating one meal a day is one of the best things that you can do for your spiritual growth, because when you only eat one meal, your body doesn't use any excess energy to digest the food, and so you have it all to your kind of conscious awareness, and so it's an incredible feeling.
Yeah, I liken it to sometimes with my girlfriend. I like to really allocate the prime time hours of the day to hang out with each other. When are we going to both feel the best, and let's hang out with each other then. And versus let's hang out like 3 times a day. So when you really put off that time and make it the best, then you get the most out of it. And when you put off that time to eat a little bit, then you get the most out of it versus just eating throughout the day. You'll get tired of it. Your body gets tired of eating. Your body wants to do something else than just be breaking down food all the time. Okay, let's see. Last couple questions. JJR, does insight involve the gland more than the thoughts? Oh yeah, we never got the answer for the insight, did we? Insight involved the gland more than the thoughts. I don't think so. No. The thing is like without the gland, thinking would be so very different. Without your pineal gland, it's probably you wouldn't even be able to think. I don't even know what it would be like. I've never moving it.
Doesn't the pineal gland allow you to have mental images inside your mind?
Mental image? I don't think so. I don't know. There's a lot of science out there. There's people way smarter than me that have studied the pineal gland for way longer than me. There was, back in my drug use days, there's this chemical called DMT. And pineal gland is responsible for this DMT excretion. And DMT, dimethyltryptamine, gives a kind of luster to your vision and your senses that you really understand what it does when you don't have it anymore. So when you flood your system with DMT like I was doing, then after the high is gone, you have none of it. And everything turns flat. Like vision turns flat. Your colors are just like flat. There's just like a flat, it's like really bland. It reminds me of kind of like how I think a dog would be seeing reality, where it's just like, there's not really like an entertainment to it. There's not like curiosity about anything. It's just empty. It's empty. Things are empty of meaning. But that doesn't mean I'm not able to perceive or think. So the pineal gland is also kind of like an eyeball. It perceives infrared. So when you close your eyes and you see an object walk in front of you, that's your pineal gland that's looking. And that's basically the extent of what I know about it. Lots of books though on it. But I would consider insight. So like thought and insight and anything mental, of course, it involves your physical apparatus. It involves this physical machine. And if you alter the machine, it's probably going to alter your thinking. But specifically, I'm asking the question about this concept like of insight versus the concept of thought. Like, how are these two different? Or how are they the same? Like, compare and contrast. What is the difference between a thought and an insight? And irregardless of the gland, because the gland is present in both. Now, if you want to say that insight is when you think with the gland and thought is when you don't think with the gland, I mean, that's your opinion. I'm open to that if that's what you mean. So, continuing on. Welcome to the podcast. The link, it's every day at noon, guys, although we might change next week depending on your comments. If you'd like it at a different time, then go ahead and comment. Otherwise, we're going to probably continue with noon p.m. Eastern Standard Time every day. Definitely on this and on the recordings, if you watch it later, or on the Facebook Live, anywhere you want. If there's a specific topic that you'd like us to really kind of go deeper into, then definitely type that. Cool. So wrapping it up, we'll do like another last question. Last one.
Magical Mercer asks, how to properly draw in more energy into the Ajna chakra. What is that?
Ajna is the forehead chakra. That's the third eye.
When I first began learning about magic, I started doing something called breathing into the third eye, or into this pineal gland, what we talked about before. And it was so painful. And I really wanted to develop these psychic powers, because I understood the power of it. I understood the usefulness of it, the value of it. And so I sat in my room and I just breathed, like the instructions said. I would just breathe in and imagine the breath energy going into the pineal gland. And I did this for I don't know how many days, just constantly breathing into this part of my brain, how I perceived it. And I would feel such a disconnect between just a disconnect between reality. Something happened where I don't know what I did, but like I felt a disconnect between reality. I couldn't feel anymore. I was drawing so much energy into my brain, and I realized, oh my God, I'm doing this wrong. Like this is messing me up. So I think that question, at least from my experience, it has to be done in a natural way. So whatever you can naturally do in order to gain insight into this kind of area that you can perceive non-physical things, that's what you have to do. So I don't know how, you just have to do it naturally. So it's not something.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I like that answer. Just think of the balance. You don't want to just overload here and not the other energy centers. It's a chain, so it's only as strong as the weakest link. That's how, the proper amount, it depends on how much energy do you have in all the other areas. Or you'll topple over. You'll become heavy. Yeah. So that's the end for now. Any closing comments? We got 1 minute left on the Instagram Live. Guys, if you like this, then send us a message. Send me a message. Send Yuri a message. Tell us what you liked about it. Tell us any suggestions about future topics, or comments maybe that were unanswered, and we'll do it again. And anything from you? Any closing statements?
Yeah, just tell us future topics, because we want to talk about what is interesting to talk about.
Yeah, and useful to you. Where are you at in your spiritual practice? And or even if it's nil, what's interesting you about spirituality in the way that we talk about it. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks for joining me, Yuri. I really appreciate it. And we'll do it again.
Yes. Thank you.